I'm François Delvaux. I'm a partner at Minds & More. Been doing collaboration with with Showpad for over 2 years. Minds & More specializes in kind of helping companies to grow in marketing, sales, and transformation, interim implementation of Showpad, training, and advisory services. Okay, question for you. This is where you get to raise your hand. Who's new to the world of sales enablement or to the Showpad, or thinking about putting Showpad in your company? I need to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, you have 15 people in group 1. Okay, so you're the newbies. Okay, we have 15 in new 1. Okay, who started implementation of Showpad? Group number 2. You're getting started. 1, 2, 3-ish, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay. 13 in group 2. All right. Who's implemented Showpad but is not far enough in terms of results? You're not quite happy. You're like, you're getting momentum but not enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, more or less, huh? And who says, hey, we're pretty good, but we need to stay best in class. We need to follow best practices. 1, good. Can share some stuff, great. 1. Okay, good. We've got all groups. So, okay, no, it's okay. No, she's hedging. That's all right. Don't worry, you know. Okay, the good news is you're not alone. Okay, you're not alone. No one's alone. Okay, so I'm going to try to make sure I address each one of your expectations around your different levels of maturity. So we did a survey, and it's still running right now with Showpad. In terms of companies, B2B companies investing in platforms and seeing, what are the insights from a platform perspective and what implications into people and processes to make the most out of your implementation of sales enablement. Okay, here's some statistics. So it's not just about the platform. That's one key message I want to share with you today is, and you probably heard that yesterday with, I think, Professor Dela or Vera, which is the dimension of processes and people to get the change that you want. Okay, so of course you're looking for business results, you're looking for business impact, yes? So the good news is more and more companies are starting to deploy sales enablement, and the trend is increasing over time. So I'm curious to see where it will finish and what it will look like at the end of 2018. Now, in terms of implementation of a platform, back to the people, thinking about what are the changes that it does to your structure, 48, almost 49% says there is some minor change to the organization. And you have 28% says, yes, there's important changes to my organization. So my experience has been things simple as updating job descriptions or creation of a new department, creation of a new role. Like I worked for a wholesaler and the lady was doing event marketing. I said, you're doing event marketing. What do? I organize 2 big events a year. Welcome to the world of content management. So I'm trying to take her into the content management and be the middle person between purchasing and marketing and sales. So clearly the job descriptions needs to evolve. The objective setting in the job descriptions and your annual reviews needs to change. Maybe the structure, maybe there was no content manager in place. Maybe there was no some other roles in place that you need to put in place. Okay, in terms of the collaboration, clearly investing in platforms helps the collaboration between marketing, sales, and customer service. So that's a good news. So it's worth the investment. A downside is, and probably maybe some of you have attended deeper sessions around the buyer journey and the personas. I'll touch on it briefly today. But companies have not done their homework enough in terms of really mapping the segments, the stages that the customers go through in terms of buying journeys, or maybe in personas, and then aligning the content. Did you do that as a best in class? Define some of the segments and personas and buyer experiences in your company? Okay, yeah. And did your company define better the customer stages and journeys? Okay, that's an important step. We'll come back to it today. Now, in terms of the investment, this is an overall conclusion, looking at different factors, but generally 53% says it's been in line with their expectations, 15 says above, so if you do the sum of those two things, we'd say about 65, 66% of the companies say, hey, the investment in sales enablement is worth it, and then 30% saying, well, we're not there yet. Okay, so let me share with you 4 or 5 tips in terms of helping you get more out of your return on investment when it comes to platforms. Okay. The first one is taking a big step back, thinking about the business and the business results. Okay. So looking at these dimensions, these might be some of the classic elements that your business looks at to manage its health. The revenues, quota achievement, the health of the funnel, the satisfaction of your customers. These are the classic measures. Do you recognize these? Okay. And a lot of companies just focus on the results. Okay. And what I want to do is challenge you a little bit and maybe help you become ambassadors so you can challenge your businesses to say it's not just about the results, because the results are not really controllable. I mean, we probably completed the results of September. You might be happy or not happy with the results, but you can't change anything. Those are the results. Now, what's important is the objectives, and behind the results are objectives. So it could be, let's focus on a particular segment, let's focus on a particular product, let's focus on a particular new introduction, let's focus on a territory, let's do more upselling, let's do more cross-selling. Do these metrics exist in your business? Okay. And these are somewhat manageable. I worked with a parcels provider, and we kind of geared the sales force a little bit, saying, okay, historically you've been doing B2C in the B2C market. It'd be great to do at least 2 or 3 days a week in the B2B market. So we were kind of steering the focus of the commercial team on the segments. Or you have the same thing with a new product launch, saying, okay, let's make sure we have 2 days of selling time per week on this new product introduction. The last one, which is really critical and I want to share with you today, is around the activities. The activities are things that you really, really control. And whether you're a marketing manager or a sales manager, these are the things that you should really focus on a day-to-day basis. Meaning, if we invest time and energy on the activities, they should support our objectives, and the objectives should get us to the results. These are your leading indicators. These are the things that really happen. This is the gold. So are we preparing the content for a specific account meeting? Are people following the process? Did people get trained on the tool? Did people get trained on how to sell the unique selling proposition? Did we prepare the sales visit? Did we challenge the person before they were going to the sales visit? Did they do the mapping of the buyer journeys, or are we using the same content for all types of customers and customer visits? So this is really important, is to go down to the activity level. Why? As I said earlier, if you look at the results, and it's interesting because you look at the metrics that are in place, 28% of metrics are all about business results. 55% of metrics are all about objectives. And only 17% of the metrics around sales activities. But this is the most critical. This is what you need to focus on. So the key takeaway from today is make sure you're looking at metrics at the activity level, because those will drive the objectives and make sure you achieve the results. So what I'm trying to do is translate these activities in terms of what does it mean in terms of the world of sales enablement and the activities we do with Showpad. So think about just ROA, results, objectives, and activities, and really focus on the activities part. By the way, what I'm saying is not new. We had a collaboration with a company in the US which wrote the book Cracking the Sales Management Code. And in that book, they talk about this whole principle of results, objectives, and activities. Okay, so let's go to the step 2. In that book and the methodology, there's 4 key roles for finding new business or winning business. So in terms of finding business, and this is no surprise, from a sales perspective, it's territory management. It's organizing the sectors. It's saying, okay, this is the coverage of this salesperson. This is the region. These are the customers they're going to go after. You're making large choices. The second dimension is accounts. So there it's maybe named accounts. You say, within this account, this is your objective. This is what we need to get done. Do your account plan, do your account mapping. Depending on the industry, you might be doing a lot around territory management. Or maybe in your industry, you say, you know what, we have 4 or 5 big customers and we need to manage those well. So that varies. The other 2 are critical. Opportunity management is basically every salesperson does this, is they try to find opportunities and progress the opportunities forward. Okay, so they qualify the opportunity. Probably many of you have a CRM or some kind of review of your pipeline or your funnel, and you're looking at the health of the opportunities. But per opportunity, there are things you need to do. What's opportunity value? Who are we selling it to? Against whom? The competition. And the thing that helps you progress forward are the calls or the meeting. Okay, so whether you have an account plan or an opportunity, what happens between an opportunity are meetings. And so meetings help you progress the opportunity forward. So if the salesperson prepares the meeting and has an effective meeting, you go one step closer, etc., etc. So the key measure here in terms of activity is, are we preparing well our visits? Are we conducting effective interactions with the prospects or the customers? Are we doing our homework after the visit? So I introduced 4 high-level roles, 4 high-level processes, and I'm going right into the activity of call and meeting management. And this should be the day-to-day of a salesperson, okay? But you might find that they actually spend not enough time in meetings and more doing other things. So that's a challenge. Interesting statistic in terms of sales managers. Historically, they do 70% of their time on other stuff than coaching of their sales reps, right? So they're doing recruiting, reporting, sending to the XCOM, the CODIR, whatever. But they're not doing coaching, and they're not doing coaching of the teams in terms of what's happening in the meeting, after the meeting, how you're using the tool. So that's something that we have to change. So within this last activity, these are sub-activities, so really detailed activities. Okay, so for example, are we preparing the visit? Have we identified all the contacts that we're going to be interacting with? Who am I meeting? Am I meeting a buyer, a decision maker, an economic person, an influencer? I will have to understand their needs as part of the sales activity. I'm going to have to validate the needs and test a few value propositions to see if I'm unique or not. Yesterday they were saying the number one issue of the salespeople is they're not able to effectively sell our unique value. Okay, do we understand their needs? Are we putting forward the unique value we can create? Are we testing different offers? Are we presenting an offer? Or are we just getting information and then disappearing and then sending something? Okay, fine. Are we negotiating the offer? Are we winning the deal? And are we planning the next interaction with the customer or with the prospect? Are we doing a debrief of the visit or the debrief of the meeting? And then are we handling objections and things like that? So these are the classic sales activities. So what we try to do is then take from the Showpad perspective, what are those steps that we can influence or we can improve by using the sales enablement technology, in case Showpad. So don't look at it from, we've got a new technology that we've introduced to the sales organization or to the marketing organization. No. Start with the sales processes and say, within the sales processes, what are the sales activities that need to happen? And how does the technology help improve some of those activities? So for example, preparing a visit, I'll show you some examples, but the salesperson should be saying, okay, who am I interacting with? Who are the contacts? What content do I need to show based on the homework I've done or the competition I know that exists in that account? So prepare your visit, organize your content, create your collections, add your annotations. Maybe you have a document with 20 pages, remove page 3, 7, and 12 because it's irrelevant and it's going to waste time. So that's an example in Showpad. Use that to prepare your meeting. In the meeting, and I'll show you examples, what questions do you ask and how do you navigate through the content that might be helpful in the meeting? It might be a content, it might be a presentation, it might be a video, it might be a checklist, it might be a business case calculator. But what do you use in that meeting? Are you using the content to validate things or saying, look, you're hesitating between A and B, I'll share you the content and can you check that with your colleagues and come back to me, for example. So use the content to have a more interactive interaction with the customers. Of course, afterwards you could see what worked, what didn't work. You could see maybe is there a correlation between the types of content we're showing in our meetings and our win rates and things like that. Handling objections. Oh, you tell us you're too expensive, or you tell us that this and that. Okay, what's the content that the salesperson can use to address or counter objections from the customers or the prospects? So this sounds really basic, but it's just about mapping the activities, saying what's the technology or the content we can use for those activities, and let's put that in the hands of the salesperson. Okay, so back to the buyer journey. I mean, you've probably seen flavors of this over the last 2 days. Classic steps, which is our biggest competition often for the salespeople is doing nothing. Our customer or our prospect doesn't want to do anything. They're comfortable, everything's cool. So you have to actually educate them with information, with questions. You have to poke a little bit to say, ouch, that hurts. You know, if you don't have that, you're wasting your time. So what can you do to create interest, and what's the content or the experience or the information they have to read to say, ouch, that hurts, I don't have enough of something, I have too much of something, or I need to protect something. I mean, that's really critical. And then your content might be different in terms of getting the need agreed, saying, okay, you're confirming that you're willing to spend time and energy to discover our solution or interact with our company or check our credentials and those kind of things. So based on the segments and the personas and based on those stages, there may be different content you might be using. Okay, so that's just a framework to work with. So for example, we've worked with a company that's kind of a medical equipment provider. Yes, they could do it initially, just organize the content by classic folders, the presentation, or clinical studies, or modules, or pricing. Okay, that's a basic way to get started, maybe. But we actually went further and say, okay, well, who are you selling to? So first, we mapped all the different stages using the atom structure. Okay, and very quickly, the marketing manager was very comfortable with the atom structure and was organizing the content around those atoms. And then the salesperson was actually saying, okay, dear anesthesiologist, what's your pain point? But the pitch to the anesthesiologist is different than a radiotherapist, which is different than a pediatrician, different than a surgeon. Okay, and if you treat them all as doctors, you're going to fail, right? They're all specialists. They all have different pain points. So they were in the space of stress management. So for example, the one who's doing the surgery has different challenges than someone who's actually putting the drug. Okay, so they have different challenges, different problems. So based on the few questions, or even just showing the atom, very quickly you can actually say, well, where do you want to discuss? What's relevant for you? What keeps you up at night? And then the customer navigates you to the right type of pain point or challenge they have. But you need to make sure that you've got the right content behind those pieces. Okay, if you have the same content across, once again, you're delivering the same messages to all doctors. Doctors are not all the same. That's for sure. So, for example, if you were speaking to an anesthesiologist, these are the things that they would see, which would be different than a surgeon, for example. Okay, but it just gives you an example of how you can maybe just organize the content a little bit differently in terms of who the salesperson is selling to. But you need close alignment between marketing and sales to organize that content. And you don't get it right from the beginning. You know, you're going to adapt, fine tune. Initially, they started with something which was very less sophisticated than this, and they forgot one group of customers, and then it evolved and evolved. But that's okay. It should be dynamic. Okay, how do we integrate this into your sales routine? So we've got Showpad and all this functionality. Yes, go ahead. Yeah. Here we go. One more. Yeah. Yeah. And it could. Yes, yes, with your finger. And then you could save it, and then you could send it to the customer. You could do a link from there to another document. You could do a link from here to a calculator. Depends how you structure your content. There's many ways you can do that, for sure. Yes. Or you could show this in a table. These are the pain points, and then to the right are the references and the credentials. So you can organize it by, you can split the screen in 3. You could say if they click on this, I bring them to some other page. You just need to think of the flow across the content, but it's possible, yeah. Okay. So in terms of integrating this into the routine, they say, you know, for routine to stick, you need to be doing the same thing for at least 6 to 8 weeks. And what I encourage you to say is, well, what can we do if people are using Showpad or new functionality of Showpad or new content, or we now have a persona? How do you make it simple, and how do you encourage them to do that? Just that for 4 weeks or for 3 accounts. So the challenge you need to do is to say, okay, we're not just going to say use the persona, we're going to say for these 3 accounts, use it. You know, you have to be very, very precise. Or with the sales manager, say, what are we agreeing to? We're going to apply it for these types of visits, or we're going to apply it for this product. You have to be very, very precise. If you're vague, then you're letting the salesperson decide when they use it and when they not use it. But if you say, look, we agree, yeah, we're going to agree to do 3 accounts. I'm not asking you to do 100. I'm not asking you to do 20. 3 accounts. And they do it for 3. And they say, it wasn't so bad. And then they get courage and momentum. So break it down to things which are digestible and that they can do relatively easily without pain. That's very important. Have you experienced this, doing something like this in your companies? Okay. Voilà. So now I play kind of a role. I looked at three stakeholders: the sales rep, the sales manager, and the marketing manager. So in terms of the routine, I'm kind of linking now the Showpad features to some of the activities of sales. So for example, and don't underestimate the first one, use of a tablet, an iPad, a PC. So I worked with a wholesaler. The average experience of the salesperson was about 25 years. Okay, so this is the first job they did out of high school, or most of them didn't go to university. Fine. And they were selling confectionery, soft drinks, alcohol, and cigarettes to gas stations. Okay, and they've been using fax and paper for 22 years. 22 years. So I do 25 sales visits, great. François, is it okay if we go back to the head office because I have to deliver this paper for a box of 2 boxes of Mars bar? Yeah, okay, fine, no problem. So we drive 50 kilometers or 40 kilometers and we give the order form to the customer service team and then they key in into the system. And then over the weekend I said, no, this is not good. So I bought 5 Samsung tablets at 200 euros and I said, okay, you're 52 years old, here's one. You're 58 years old, here's one, etc., etc. Don't worry, if you break it, it's not the end of the world. It's just 200 euros, okay? So just get used to it. And so we just started with the very basics in terms of just how to navigate within a tablet. And you think, oh, it's easy. No, you have to help the person just get comfortable with the tablet. How do you use the finger? How do you navigate? That's the basics. And often we go way too fast. Way too fast. Start with the basics. Can they use a tablet? Can they turn it on, turn it off? When it freezes, what happens? All those things. Really, start with that. Okay, they've done that. Good. By the way, we've created a channel, and I'll show you an example. Ah, okay, I see a channel. What's a channel? Then you give them the basic training. Okay, can they do that? Good. In, out of the channel, in, out. Really start with the basics and do it a few times. And the sales of the size of the sales team was more than 5 people. We just start with 5, which is not big bang. 5, it's manageable, and we can give them personal coaching, and then they can become ambassadors for the rest of their colleagues. Okay, then we said, okay, now let's practice, let's go in a customer meeting and see how you present that to the gérant of a gas station. How do you show the content? Where do you start? Okay, you know, how do you interact that? Because before they never used something, it's like, well, they were carrying the folders. So how do they just even, I remember he was showing his screen always like that. I'm like, why are you showing like this? You could show it like that. You have more space. Oh, okay. But no, but seriously, we laugh, but these are the basics that you have to do. So how they show it, and then it's where the sales manager needs to go with the rep and a company and say, okay, good try. Let's give a bit of feedback. Let's try it a bit differently next time. How do you access the channels? Now, there's the channels of the content, which can be, okay, about the company, the products, the pricing. What we do often is we create a personal channel. And that's where the salesperson will find their objectives, their account lists, information that's specific to them, their progression. So it gives them a reason to go back to Showpad to see how they're performing. And the sales manager puts the weekly reports in there. So in the old days, the sales manager was emailing. Said, no, don't email it. Put it into Showpad, because we need to find reasons for them to use Showpad. I mean, you really need to integrate that into their routine. So we created personal drives, personal channels, and we put content there, okay? Which is separate than a channel that they would use in the customer visit, okay? Announcements, those are really good. You're familiar with announcements, huh? You do there's something special on this product, or with a special promotion, or we've adapted the price, or the factory's run out of stock, or something, and then you inform the salesperson. But does the salesperson know how to read the announcement? That kind of thing. Or how does the salesperson know, this is more beginner to intermediate, how do they start personalizing their collections? How do they manage collections? How do they save documents? How do they reuse collections they've created in the past? That's an important one, is helping them share content with the customers. Okay, that's fine. But then almost become a campaign manager as a salesperson. So actually see, did the customer open the email? Did they share it? And those kind of things. So it's helping a salesperson become a campaign manager, which is not all that straightforward. So that's important. That's probably more intermediate. Do they look at the analytics? And then depending on the environment that you have in your business, some of you may have a CRM integrated with Showpad, some might be separately. Okay, fine. But do they create the linkage in terms of, okay, the opportunity, did I progress as a result of using Showpad? Did I progress the opportunity forward? Was I more productive in my meetings? Those kind of things. Some of you have integrated. Okay, that's more advanced. So these are really sub-activities from a classic sales point of view, sales rep point of view, with a bridge towards the technology, with Showpad. From the manager perspective, and as I said, if you don't have the managers on board, this thing won't work. It won't work. So you need to get the sales managers on board. But you need to start the basics again, because you think they know, they don't know. So you have to spend time with them to say, let's make sure you know how the features work, because when the sales rep asks you and you're not able to answer, you're not credible. You lose credibility in the eyes of your sales rep. So start with the basics with the sales manager, train them before the sales reps, so they're at least a few steps ahead of the organization. Are they able to load content? So for example, with the wholesaler, is the sales manager, I had 3 or 4 sales managers working with me, are they able to share, to load objectives per sales rep? Are they able to put the content in the right folder? You know, we did sales drives, initially every month, and every 2 weeks, and every week. Are they able to load the sales drives? Are they comfortable with that? Are they tagging the document? Those kind of things. Can they post an announcement? And then once they discover that, they fall in love with it. Oh, it's so great. Wow, announcement, super. So do they use the dashboards? I mean, there's so much reporting analytics that's available, but even just a standard dashboard where the bottom you see feedback to content, that's still not used enough. So even if you've made the investment, you're group 3, right? You're group 3, you've invested in Showpad and you're not getting enough. Well, look, in terms of the sales routine, are they looking at the feedback to the content from their colleagues? How often do they look at their dashboards? Okay, maybe not enough. Are they using all the other analytics? And are they linking the analytics around the content to watch salesperson? And do they use that back in terms of their national sales meeting or their monthly sales meeting to say, you know, this salesperson, I know they hit the objective. Not only did they hit the objective, but they're the ones who showed more content XYZ or used more this new product information. So that people realize, to be more successful, I have to follow what my colleagues do and I have to use the content. So that's really important. Make sure the content stays relevant. So that's where marketing and sales need to work together. Content changes or things happen, but just make sure you don't have old content, because then that kills the whole credibility of the initiative. It's very important. And of course, if you have CRM, then they can go much richer in terms of the analytics. Oops, did I go too fast? Okay, yes. So this is an example. For those who are kind of new, relatively new to Showpad, you can see that when there's a piece of content that's open, there's 3 little dots on the side, and the salesperson can click on those 3 little dots and put a comment, and then those appear into the dashboard. And then those can be shared to the purchasing team or to the sales team, saying, okay, price was too high, and this is the impression that the customer had, and then you can see the whole history of the sales reps on that particular content piece. That's very good, and it's very dynamic, and then you can adapt. So sometimes we said, we're too expensive, can we adjust? Yes, no, we can, let's go for it. Okay, their business was more transactional. In terms of reporting analytics, a sales manager can use, say, okay, in the Coca-Cola display we did, or in this drive, overall, did we use the content across the sales team? And then can do a zoom in by sales reps. Okay, Dirk and Hugo, you're the superstars. You showed it 229 times. This guy here showed 189 times. Okay, so they're actively showing the content. Good. What about the person that only showed it 3 or 4 times? Why is that? So when you go to the bottom of the list and you look at rep number 22, 23, 26, why are they only showing it 6 times? And what explains that behaviors? And then the sales manager needs to integrate that back in terms of their coaching or their feedback to the rep. For the marketing, same thing. Know all the features that the reps are using, know all the features that the manager is using, even if you're not using it day-to-day, but you at least need to know what they're using. Of course, you need to load content and create smart folders. You know smart folders? So you don't have, you put something with a tag, or you tag the document, and automatically will be put into the right folder. So you don't have to create each folder and put it into the folder. So you have a rule, kind of. So that's very important. Of course, announcements are helpful. The dashboards, yes, and see the feedback, because sometimes the feedback goes towards sales and marketing. So act and be dynamic on the feedback. Because if you don't react to the feedback that the salespeople are sharing in the field, after 3-4 weeks, I'll say, but why am I giving the feedback? I'm giving feedback where no one's acting on the feedback. So make sure you say, we heard you, and we've adapted or we've changed things. Interactive content, so you might start with a basic folder, but then over time, depending on the client environment, you can go towards atoms, okay, which might be a more logical way to have the meetings or the interactions with the customers. Definitely manage well the tags, and put some kind of policy around tags, because soon you'll have all types of tags and flavors of tags, so have a clear policy and guideline on tags. Content analytics, of course. Review the feedback that you've received, remove old stuff, or you can put timer, you can put expiration dates on some content. So this is a drive from October the 1st to the 15th, the 16th, automatically it disappears because you've tagged it appropriately. This gets more sophisticated in terms of large numbers of content or linked to SharePoint and other knowledge management systems. And then, of course, there's a whole CRM and more. But it's important that you see as marketing one of the stakeholders, okay? So they're all three critical for this to work. And then you might create events which create kind of something new. So for example, back to this wholesaler, they were complaining, I would say they were almost crying, saying, look, it's a shame we're in April and our competition is doing their foire, major event. And you know, we always do ours in September, so we're going to lose a lot of business. And I said, okay, so what's the solution? Well, the solution is to do a physical fair in April. No. What can we do? And I said, well, what can we do with Showpad? Well, we can do a virtual fair. So what we did is we actually created a virtual fair where we put specific promotions on the sales reps' tablets, and they brought the fair to the customers for a week, and a week before the competition. So this was the Foire de Printemps. And what are you in the mood for? Are you thirsty? You want a snack? So we just played with a simple visual, and in 1 week we did 500,000 revenues, 300 customers. They were going to be visited anyway by the sales rep, so we just gave something different for the sales rep to say as part of their visits. So voilà, so just look for events where you can create something different. It could be a competition, it could be this, it could be a new product launch, it could be a video you have to show, or an award or something, but create some momentum, something new, or else people, that's the downside of the routine. They say, oh, okay, nothing's new. Boom, wow, that's something new. And since then, they've done it 3 times in a row. I mean, three times, so very successful. Also, I don't know, who's using CRM Dynamics? Some of you? CRM Dynamics? Okay. So the client had CRM Dynamics. We just put a little layer on top. It's called Resco, which is kind of front end. So you can put it on top of CRM Dynamics, which makes the whole environment look like a iPad. So it's just a layer you put on top from a technology perspective. And then we were able to customize the navigation. So we actually created, we did it in 1 hour. Link to your content. This is because there's 2 divisions. Fixmer has, in 1 click, the sales rep in the CRM clicks and sees all his content or her content relevant in Showpad. So once again, just create linkages between apps. Don't create silos. Little button, you go there and you go from Showpad back to the CRM. Okay, so we didn't change any code or anything complicated. It was just a way to go back and integrate that in terms of their way of working. Just make it simple for them. Okay. Okay, management, last piece around management. So if you're starting deploying Showpad, be realistic in terms of timing, okay? Give enough time for people to learn. It is a change process. So people are always surprised. It took up to 25% more time. It says 20% of people, it took more than 25%. So yeah, 46% of people who are saying, oof, it took more time than I had planned. Probably they were just a little bit too aggressive with the timing. So allow people to learn. Hence why you might want to do a pilot, 6 to 8 weeks, share the pilot, and then start with the rest of the organization and do in chunks of 2 months, for example. Took over a year for them to be really middle to advanced. But recognize that people are at different speeds. So you need to be flexible. You're gonna have some marketing managers or some content managers or some sales reps or sales managers which are here, and you need to work at their speed. And there's some which are going to slow you down. Well, don't worry. Keep on moving ahead, okay? But you can't treat them all at the same pace. And you can't treat them all with the same kind of training. So you need to show some flexibility. So for those who are championing and really putting it into motion, keep them motivated and try and follow up with their speed, okay? But don't use one size fits all, because it's not going to work. From the study we had done, the good news is senior management is willing to invest. So top management frees up the necessary resources, people and money on these types of initiatives. Yes, so you'd be surprised, but more often than not, 79% of management says were available and made resources available for these types of initiatives. So leverage these resources. Voila. And of course, you can use some of those resources to do additional training, support the change process, create incentives. Okay, all the things you need to do. But generally, senior management is behind these types of initiatives. Okay, so as a recap, first is really define the linkage between your results, objectives, and activities. Do that exercise. Even if it's before the sales enablement, just say, well, have we structured our activities correctly? What are the relevant activities we need to focus on? And then on those activities, say, okay, what role will Showpad have, or what role will my sales enablers have? That's very important. Recognize different speeds, as I said, the reps, the managers, the marketing, and the bell curve I showed to you. You need to be able to adapt to those different speeds. Encourage dynamic. So as I said earlier, if people share content or give you tips or adaptations, you need to do those, or else you'll lose credibility with the organization. Very important. Avoid big bang. So take 30 reps, let's go, boom. No, do it in a staged approach. Learn, because it's a whole learning cycle. Okay, and I think we're all still learning this, and there's always new functionality that Showpad's developing. So, but don't do the big bang, because you can't manage everything at once. Train, definitely train the sales teams, but back in terms of integrating this in terms of their daily routine, and keep the training up to date. All the training that we had done or we've done with clients, we put it in Showpad. This is the introduction. So like they use Showpad to access the training manual on how to use Showpad. Or they go in Showpad to get the training manual on how the CRM works. Or they use Showpad where they see the training on the new bonus plan. Okay, we're using that. Make sure your content is relevant to the buyers, of course. Conversions. The example I showed you, just adapt the navigation so you can link it to the CRM or other things, so that make it easier for the commercial team. As I said, you'll be surprised, but the senior management is very often behind you. And by doing this, what I've seen is that it really brings marketing and sales together for real alignment, and of course, when you're well aligned, you get much more business results. Okay, so group 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you have questions, I can answer. Yep. Yeah. So how do I deal with that? The challenge is it's from their credibility perspective. So they need to know enough. They don't need to be the ultimate expert, because the sales reps or other people will be always better. But they need to know the building blocks. So that's one. Or they need to guide the salesperson towards the person who can answer those questions. That's an important piece. But what's more important is that they make sure they mention this as part of their coaching and their interaction with the salesperson. So if the salesperson says, I've had my one-to-ones with my sales manager and never has he or she talked about the use of Showpad, then he or she doesn't believe in it. So yeah, voila. So I think sales manager training, I did 2 times 4 hours with the sales managers, voila. And then some support in between, okay, voila. And of course, Showpad can answer questions and things like that, so it's possible. But what's important is to say, okay, show me your coaching routine. How often do you do one-to-ones, and what are the things you talk about? What's important is they look at the reporting and they ask the right questions. Okay. Other questions? Oh, yes.
It might be more an answer. I don't know. It might be helpful. We have a similar challenge. I think we struggle to get managers because they have so many different things to do. So you make the point. And one of the things we're in the process of doing, which we haven't launched yet, so we haven't got a magic wand, but is we're building a kind of productivity report which looks at how the reps are performing, and then Showpad is just one indicator of a number of things that could
Voilà.
be.
Yeah.
So we pull the analytics into one overview
Mm-hmm.
from Showpad rather than looking at lots of different things. So it's just one indicator of the tool.
Yes. And your point is really important. If you don't put this as part of the KPIs of the sales manager and as part of their own objectives, it's not going to get the focus. I do the same thing like in social selling. We also do things in social selling. If you haven't put like social selling indicators in terms of the objective of the salesperson, they won't spend time and energy behind that one. That's key. Yeah, that's key. Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I've done my correlation, but you can definitely see for those accounts what content was shared. Now, if it's in CRM integrated, great. If it's not, you know those were the 3 accounts you agreed with the salesperson, and you see what content was shown, how much time they spent, and the flow they used. And then you're saying, okay, did a new opportunity get created? How come? So the good news is about those 3, it's manageable enough to ask the right questions. If you have 100 accounts, you don't know where to go. But here, we just wanted a debrief on those 3 accounts. So tell me what you did on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for that account. And then you just write those things down if you need to. And you do the same thing week 2, week 3, week 4. And you can say, okay, this one progressed faster. And then you have other people which have not used the tool, and you say, well, okay, can we compare their performance versus this group? The whole point is to get from the 2 to 3 wins amongst the sales professionals. Say, okay, it works. It does help, but voila. You link it completely. But if you don't have that, just a classic pen and paper debrief at the end of each week, since it's 3 accounts, it buys you time. It buys you time. Yeah. No, for sure. Oh, you give him an excuse. You give him, yeah, of course. Exactly. No, that's why. And that's why I say start with 3, show it works, get momentum, and then expand. Okay? All right. Thank you, everybody.